Hello, my name is Russell Myers, independent for U.S. President for 2024. On September 20th, 2017, the UN General Assembly held a vote on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, PONW, agreement, with 122 nations voting in favor of banning nuclear weapons. One nation voted against the ban and one nation abstained. I'll give you one guess which nation objected. The United States. Yes, even Russia voted in favor of banning nuclear weapons. Russia and China each have public policies on the use of nuclear weapons, which is a no first strike policy. They have each stated that nuclear weapons would only be used by those nations as a defensive measure in response to a nuclear attack or under extreme circumstances. The United States has never had a no first strike policy, and we are the only nation that has ever used a nuclear weapon for anything other than testing purposes. In the 2017 Nuclear Posture Review, the U.S. stated that nuclear weapons can be used for the purpose of maintaining our way of life. That statement in itself remains vague, open to interpretation in any way that a sitting administration may see fit. As of the last official count, the U.S. had 3,750 nuclear weapons. That was before then President Trump reduced transparency of reporting how many nuclear weapons we have. So we may have far more than that at this time. Many nuclear weapons we have today are hundreds to thousands of times more powerful than the ones which were used against Japan in 1945. Even what is deemed a tactical nuclear weapon has a destructive force of up to 170 kilotons. The bomb dropped on Nagasaki had a force of 20 kilotons. It would take only one modern nuclear weapon to incinerate a city the size of New York in seconds. The immediate radioactive fallout would extend for hundreds of miles, leaving that environment uninhabitable for centuries. The contamination would then be carried on the jet stream, circling the globe, affecting all life on Earth to some degree. In the 1970s, we used the acronym MAD, Mutually Assured Destruction. The use of even the smallest nuclear weapon against a competing nuclear power would be met with a nuclear response, resulting in an escalation which would annihilate all life on Earth. Most human deaths would occur instantly, as major population centers would be the primary targets. The rest of the life on the planet would suffer agonizing radiation poisoning, resulting in burns and DNA deformations. Then, after an initial dramatic rise in global temperatures, the sun would be blacked out in a nuclear winter, plunging temperatures below anything seen since the last ice age, very possibly exceeding that. No food would grow, and what food remained would be poisoned. There would be no effective heat sources once short-term fuels were exhausted, which would happen within weeks. In other words, you can absolutely forget Hollywood apocalyptic fantasies like Mad Max. That would not be a thing. There would be no chance for tribal wars fighting for resources because all life would be too weakened to engage in conflict. The new nuclear arms race does not have to do with yield, but with delivery capability. In 2018 or 2019, Russia announced that they had developed intercontinental hypersonic missile systems. This has nothing to do with nuclear yield. It has to do with delivering a nuclear weapon to a specific target successfully without any chance for interception. Some of those weapons have evasive capabilities and nuclear drive systems, enabling them to circle the Earth indefinitely while having a speed which prevents interception and possibly even detection. If we believe their claims, they did launch one test vehicle, which circled the Earth multiple times without being detected by radar or satellite. Each of these missiles can carry up to 10 nuclear warheads, striking multiple targets with one vehicle. There would be no warning possible. To date, all U.S. tests of hypersonic delivery systems have basically failed. There are claims of successful tests, followed by the announcement of the need for more testing. If the tests were successful, it would lead to mass production, not more testing. The Last START, Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, expires in 2026. President Biden has announced an intent to engage in negotiations to renew this treaty. However, at the same time, he is keeping the aforementioned nuclear posture review in place, refusing to declare a no first strike policy or sign on to the prohibition of nuclear weapons treaty noted in the first paragraph. Meanwhile, Congress has announced the intention of declaring Russia to be a state sponsor of international terrorism, to which Russia has responded by ceasing nearly all diplomatic contact. China has stated that they have no intention of signing on to a New START treaty, and it is unlikely that Russia will agree to such a treaty with current U.S. policies as I have described. Maintaining our nuclear arsenal is a financial black hole. As one of his last acts in office, former President Obama committed the U.S. to spend $1 trillion over 10 years to upgrade our nuclear arsenal. Former President Trump found that to be insufficient and increased funding for nuclear weapons by an undisclosed amount. As such, it costs us at least $100 billion per year to maintain our nuclear arsenal. That money does absolutely nothing of benefit to our economy and indeed does measurable economic harm. Nuclear weapons do not make us safer, they make us far less safe. There have been many incidents in the past which have been publicly disclosed where we have run the extreme risk of entering into a nuclear confrontation due to human or electronic error. All it takes is a computer glitch or psychopathic hacker, and the entire planet goes up in flames. The estimated response time for a president to make a decision regarding the use of nuclear weapons is under 3 minutes. That includes the time necessary to enter the complex launch sequence in the nuclear football. This means there is no time for a president to be informed of the circumstances advising a launch. That decision would be made by other people. So what would I do about all of this? My personal preference would be to sign on to the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons Agreement and immediately eliminate all nuclear weapons in our arsenal. However, I know this would not go over well. Americans are conditioned to be continuously terrified, and it takes time to fight fear. Instead, I would first reduce the nuclear arsenal by 50%. I've explained extensively that I would engage in diplomacy. My next step would be negotiations with other nuclear powers to work toward gradual multilateral nuclear reduction, leading to long-term agreements which would lead to permanent disarmament and the complete elimination of any nuclear threat globally. In other words, a new START treaty, but one that actually lived up to the name. Each step in this process would require open inspections and intelligence confirmation. With the power of modern nuclear weapons, having the sheer number of nuclear weapons that we do is madness, even for those that insist that we need these weapons. A reduction in the number is quite rational. This would allow us to either reduce spending on weapons which increase the threat to all human life. That spending could be diverted to spending which benefits the American people in real ways, and to increase diplomatic efforts which would reduce the need for such weapons. We could be spending that money on real threats to human lives in this country and others. Cut nuclear spending by 50%, and that money could end world hunger, including in the U.S., permanently. We already have the most equipped, most expensive military on Earth. We spend over half of our discretionary budget on our military. We spend more than the next 11 countries combined, and that is before we factor in spending for the CIA, NSA, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and VA. Factor those in, and we spend more than every other country on Earth combined for defense. Even that is before we factor in spending for police, jails, and prisons. Then we have the largest incarcerated population in world history. All of this speaks to a mentality of clinical paranoia as a nation. Like it or not, this is a conscious choice. We can have a world which is not shivering in fear every minute. A world in which diplomacy takes precedence over conflict. I may sound like a person who trusts blindly. I definitely am not. Nothing I am suggested would happen blindly. As I said, this would require multilateral, objective, and fair inspections, coupled with ongoing diplomatic efforts. However, that would be a world which we have to want and strive for. It means we have to stop listening to people with insanely hyper-aggressive mentalities that have no end goal to their rhetoric. As long as we continue feeding on fear, building up more destructive capabilities, the more our adversaries have no choice but to do the same things in response. That approach has no possible positive end. There is no finish line. It just keeps escalating. We can end this cycle. We can do better. Security means the reduction or elimination of threat, not taking steps which make others feel terrified of the threat that we pose to them. It has been over a century since an adversarial military force set foot on U.S. soil. The threats Americans face today have nothing to do with a military enemy. It is time to end this cycle. We need to focus on the well-being of our own people and try to achieve actual security in real terms. Nuclear arms reduction is only a part of that process, but a very necessary part. Please share this article or video. Discuss these issues. Sharing helps expand awareness of this campaign. I do need your help. If you can afford it, please donate whatever you can to help expand this campaign. It is a fact of our current system that a political campaign needs money, and I won't be getting any money from corporations. So every penny does help. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day.